Hello and welcome back, Mastery Algebra 1. I'm Mr. White, and this is section 3-7, Absolute Value Equations and Inequalities. This is the first video of 3 involving first absolute value equations. So in this activity, we're going to learn to solve absolute value equations, which is any equation that contains absolute value symbol. So let's review a little bit before we go. Now the geometric definition says that any absolute value is really the distance away from 0. So from previous lessons, we know that if we take the absolute value of 2, the distance 2 is away from 0 should be 2. If we plug in a negative 2, then the distance away back on a number line, if we go back, it should be also 2. So the absolute value of negative 3 should be 3. And the absolute value of 3 should be 3. So number 2, we're going to circle the numbers in the set that can be substituted in for x to make this equation true, which is the absolute value of x is equal to 2. Okay? So if we look at negative 3, we know that the absolute value of negative 3 was 3, so 3 is not equal to 2. The absolute value of 2, negative, which was equal to 2, so we can circle that one. So really, if we think about it, any number that goes in should be either 2 or negative 2. So we have 2 answers here. Okay. In number 3, we have the absolute value of y is equal to 1. So the only thing that could be equal to 1 is really 1 and negative 1. So if we go down the line, we have negative 1 and we have 1. Okay. So in the little box, we have almost every absolute value equation has 2 answers. In an equation, we have the absolute value of x. X could either be equal to 6 or it could be equal to negative 6. Thus making this statement true and this statement true. So using the principles from above, go ahead and fill in the blanks. Alright, let's see how you did. So the absolute value of x equals 5 means that x could be equal to 5 or x could be equal to negative 5. Okay. The absolute value of x is equal to 13 means that x could be equal to 13 or negative 13. And number 6, the absolute value of x equals 250 could be equal to, yes, 250 or negative 250. Okay. So every absolute value equation represents 2 equations combined into one. What we're looking at is we're going to see the distance away from 0 on the negative side and the distance away from 0 on the positive side. So the absolute value of 10, so the absolute value of x equals 10 means that really x equals 10 or x equals negative 10. If we add something to change the equation inside the absolute value sign, so if we have the absolute value of x minus 1 equals 7, means that x minus 1 equals 7, or the x minus 1 should equal the negative 7. Okay. So let's use this principle for the questions below. If we have the absolute value of x plus 3 equals 5, what this means is we're going to take what's inside the absolute value and put it down, and we're going to say that that distance is equal to 5, or we take the absolute value and we set it equal to negative 5. Okay. Notice I am not changing the signs inside the absolute value sign because the absolute value of negative and positive is still positive. Okay. So we're changing on the outside whatever is equal to. Okay. So 2x minus 1 absolute value is equal to 9. We have 2x minus 1 is equal to 9. Okay. Or on the left-hand side, we can go that 2x minus 1 is equal to negative 9. And the last, number 9, we have the absolute value of 5 minus 3x equals 25. So we should have 5 minus 3x equals 25, or that 5 minus 3x equals negative 25. Okay. Now when we get to 10 and 11, it's a little different because we have now on 10, we have a 2 times the absolute value of 5x. So in order to write our 2 equations, we need to first get the absolute values of it, the absolute value part by itself. So if 2 times the absolute value of 5x Let's undo that by dividing by 2 to both sides. So by dividing by 2, we are now changing this to the absolute value of 5x equals 5. Now that we have the absolute value part by itself, we can rewrite our two equations, and we say that 5x equals 5 or 5x equals negative 5. So number 11. Go ahead and hit pause. Try it. Check back in about 20 seconds. Go. Welcome back. So if you notice, the 3e has a minus 8 on the outside. So what we need to do is we need to move this 8 over to the other side with the 7. So we add 8 to both sides. Then we get the absolute value of 3e equals 15. Now that we have the absolute value of 3e equals 15, we can say that 3e should equal 15, or 3e should equal the negative 15. So that's how we write both the absolute value equations. Flip over. Okay. So if you notice, skill 3 says solving absolute value equations. If we have this absolute value of y minus 2 equals 4, okay, we know that the two equations are y minus 2 equals 4, y minus 2 equals negative 4. Okay, we're going to solve for y, or solve for the variable, both the same ways. We have to add 2 to both sides. On the left over here, we're going to get y equals 6. Or, when we add 2, we get y equals negative 4 plus 2, which is negative 2. What we want to do is we want to take our answers, plug them back in, and see if they're true. So, does the absolute value of 6 minus 2 equal 4? The absolute value of 4 is 4, so the answer is yes. If we plug in negative 2 and negative 2 make negative 4. Absolute value of negative 4 is 4, so yes. So, using the principles that we did on the first page, now let's see if we can write our new equations and solve. Okay, so number 12. We have the absolute value of x plus 3 equals 5. Okay, we need to write our two equations. Okay, well, one of them should hopefully be a little easier than the other. For instance, let's just take our x plus 3 and set it equal to 5. Or, we're going to take the absolute value and set it equal to the negative 5. So here's our two equations. Now, solving-wise, if we need to get x by itself, we need to take this positive 3 and move it over. So we're going to subtract 3 here. And we're going to get x equals 2. Or, if we do the same thing on the other side, x minus 3, x should equal negative 8. So we got x equals 2 or x equals negative 8. Let's check this here. So if we plug in for x equals 2, if we plug in 2 plus 3, absolute value, that should be equal to 5. Absolute value is equal to 5. So that checks out. If we take the negative 8, negative 8 plus 3, absolute value should equal 5. Negative 5 equals 5. That checks out. Go ahead, hit pause. Try 13 and 14. We'll see you back here in a couple minutes. Go. Alright, welcome back. If you look at 13, we should have gotten 2x minus 1 equals 9. 2x minus 1 equals negative 9. By solving first the left-hand side, you should have gotten x equals 5. The right-hand side, adding 1, dividing by 2, you should have got negative 4. If we plug in and check, they both work out. For 14, we get 5 minus 3x equals 25. We got 5 minus 3x equals negative 25. Both equations we have to subtract 5, then divide by negative 3, and we get negative 20/3, or x equals 10. Alright, moving on. What happens if we have something on the outside of the absolute value? Okay. Well, the absolute value equation says we still have two equations, but we first have to get the absolute value part by itself. So attached to this absolute value of 5x, we have a 2. We are multiplying it 2 times the absolute value. So what we need to do is we need to get the 2 over to the other side. So in order to undo this 2, we're going to divide both sides by 2 first. By dividing by 2, we're going to get the absolute value of 5x equals 5. Okay. Now, we can write our 2 equations, so we should have 5x equals 5, or 5x should equal negative 5. By solving, we're going to divide by 5, x should be equal to 1, or if we divide by 5 again, divide by 5, x should be equal to negative 1. Okay. So if we double check, x equals 1 or x equals negative 1, if we plug into our equation, and when we actually plug in, we always plug in back to the original equations. Okay. 2 times the absolute value of 5 times 1 should equal 10. Okay. We have 2 times the absolute value of 5 should equal 10. Absolute value of 5 is 5, so 2 times 5 is equal to 10. Okay. If we go 2 times the absolute value of 5 times negative 1 should equal 10. 2 times the absolute value of negative 5 should equal 10. 2 times 5 is 10. So they check out. Alright, one more. Go ahead, hit pause. Try 16. We're taking the absolute value of 3e minus 8 equals 7. Go. Welcome back. If we notice the first step on 16, hopefully you added 8 over to get 15. So the absolute value of 3e equals 15. So now we can write our 2 equations since the absolute value is by itself. So we take what's inside the absolute value. We say 3e is equal to that 15, which we originally had. Or we have to switch the sign. So 3e is equal to negative 15. Solving both equations, we have to divide by 3. So you should have had e equals 5 or e equals negative 5. Congratulations. Remember, this is part A. Always remember, do your best, forget the rest. Bye for now.